You know that feeling, don't you? That nagging sense that something essential has been stolen from you, something you can't quite name but desperately miss. Well, here's what nobody wants to tell you. The moment you took your first breath, the greatest theft in human history began. Not your wallet, not your innocence, not even your dreams. What was stolen was infinitely more precious. Your original knowing of what you actually are. Before anyone taught you your name, before you learned to see yourself as separate, before you believed the lie that you're just a lonely fragment floating in hostile space, you knew something magnificent. And tonight, I'm going to help you remember what that was. Because the truth you forgot isn't just knowledge, it's the key to your awakening. But I must warn you, once you remember, you can never go back to sleep. The moment you arrived in this world, screaming and gasping for air, the most sophisticated conspiracy in human history began its work on you. Not a conspiracy of evil people with malicious intent, mind you, but something far more insidious. The conspiracy of the well-meaning. Your parents, your teachers, your entire society, all of them completely convinced they were helping you by teaching you the most elaborate fiction ever conceived. The fiction that you are separate. Think about it for a moment. When you were born, did you know where you ended and the world began? Did you experience yourself as isolated, cut off, fundamentally alone? Of course not. You were pure awareness, flowing seamlessly with everything around you. You didn't know you had a problem because you didn't know you were supposed to be a separate somebody having problems. But then came the relentless education. This is you, and that is not you. Here's where you end, and the world begins. You must compete, you must achieve, you must become somebody important. And slowly, gradually, you learn to experience yourself as an isolated island of consciousness, desperately trying to make contact with other islands across the vast ocean of separateness. But here's what's absolutely fascinating. This separation never actually happened. It's entirely conceptual, like learning to see optical illusions. The rope was always just a rope, but you learn to see a snake. Now, let me ask you something rather personal. Where exactly do you end and the world begins? Is it at your skin? That seems obvious, doesn't it? After all, here's your body, contained within this envelope of flesh, and out there is everything else, the chair you're sitting on, the air you're breathing, the sounds around you. Simple enough, but wait just a moment. What about the air you just breathed in? A second ago it was out there, now it's in here. When exactly did it become you? And what about the food you ate this morning? Where's the boundary between the apple and your body? It's rather arbitrary, isn't it? You see, what we call you is actually an ongoing transaction with everything around you. You're not so much a thing as you are a happening, a process, a dance of energy that includes far more than what's contained within your skin. But we learned to ignore this obvious truth and instead imagine ourselves as what I call skin-encapsulated egos, isolated spirits somehow trapped inside bags of flesh. This creates the most peculiar predicament. If you're truly separate, truly isolated, then how do you connect with anything? How do you love? How do you understand? How do you even know that there's a world out there? The whole problem of loneliness, of alienation, of feeling cut off from life, it all stems from this fundamental misidentification with the contents of your skin. But what if this boundary is just a convention, like the lines on a map, useful for certain purposes, but not ultimately real? Here's where things get deliciously absurd. Not only did we learn to see ourselves as separate, but we also invented the most childish game imaginable, the game of dividing absolutely everything into good and bad, right and wrong, desirable and undesirable. As if the universe itself was sitting around with a cosmic report card grading every experience. Think about it. When you were very small, before language took over your mind, did you judge a rainy day as bad and a sunny day as good? Did you experience hunger as evil and satisfaction as righteous? Of course not. You simply experienced what was happening without this constant mental commentary of approval and disapproval. But then we learned the great division. Pleasant sensations became good and must be pursued at all costs. Unpleasant sensations became bad and must be avoided like the plague. And suddenly, instead of flowing with the natural rhythm of experience, we found ourselves in constant warfare with half of life itself. This is utterly ridiculous when you really see it. It's like trying to have a magnet with only one pole, or insisting that you only want the peaks of mountains without any valleys. Yet we spend our entire lives trying to eliminate the so-called negative experiences and cling desperately to the positive ones. But here's the cosmic joke. The universe doesn't actually operate according to our preferences. Life includes everything. Birth and death, pleasure and pain, success and failure, not because it's confused or broken, but because that's how the whole dance works. You can't have a symphony with only high notes, can you? The moment you stop fighting half of your experience, something extraordinary happens. You discover that what you were calling problems were actually just part of the music. Now let me tell you about the most devastating theft of all, how we were robbed of the present moment. Somewhere along the way, we became convinced that life is not happening now, but rather in some imaginary future when we finally get our act together. When we lose the weight, find the relationship, make the money, solve the problems, then, supposedly, we'll be able to relax and actually live. This is perhaps the cruelest joke ever played on human consciousness. Because the future, you see, is always a concept. It never actually arrives as the future. It only ever arrives as another present moment. But by then, we're already projecting into the next future, and the next, ad infinitum. Meanwhile, the only life you'll ever actually experience, this moment, right now, is completely overlooked. It's as if you spent your entire vacation planning the next vacation instead of noticing the sunset right in front of you. And what about the past? We carry it around like a heavy suitcase full of regrets and resentments, constantly replaying old movies in our heads, as if somehow we could change the ending. But the past is also just a concept, a collection of memories arising in this present moment. So here you are, this magnificent aware presence, capable of experiencing the most extraordinary aliveness, and instead you're mentally time-traveling between a past that no longer exists and a future that never actually arrives. You're missing the only moment where life is actually happening, which is always right now. The eternal now isn't some mystical concept. It's simply the recognition that this moment is the only reality you'll ever encounter. Everything else is imagination. Now I'm going to tell you something that might sound completely mad at first, but stay with me because it's the most important thing you'll ever hear. You are not in the universe. The universe is not some vast container that you happen to be floating around inside of like a lost astronaut. No, 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 that's got it entirely backwards. The universe is something you're doing right now. You are an activity of the cosmos, just as a wave is an activity of the ocean. The wave doesn't exist separately from the water. It is the water temporarily waving, and you don't exist separately from the universe. You are the universe, temporarily personing. Think about it this way. Your body is made of elements forged in the nuclear furnaces of ancient stars. Your breath is the atmosphere of this planet, cycling through you moment by moment. Your thoughts arise from the same creative intelligence that spins galaxies and grows forests. Where exactly does the universe end and you begin? The truth is, what you call yourself is actually the cosmos looking out through your eyes, listening through your ears, thinking through your mind. It's the universe becoming conscious of itself through the temporary arrangement of atoms and awareness that you call your name. This isn't poetry. This is the most practical recognition possible. Because if you are the universe, then you are not an accident, not a mistake, not some cosmic afterthought that somehow needs to justify its existence. You're the universe exploring itself through this particular focal point of consciousness. It's like the ultimate game of hide and seek, where the cosmic consciousness hides from itself so completely that it forgets what it is, just for the sheer joy of rediscovering itself. And right now, through your awareness, the universe is starting to remember what it really is. Here's something that will probably irritate your mind tremendously. All that frantic effort to understand everything, to figure it all out, to get your life under control, it's precisely what's keeping you from recognizing the profound intelligence that you already are. You see, we've been taught that knowledge is power, that understanding leads to control, that if we could just accumulate enough information about ourselves and the world, we'd finally be safe and secure. But this creates the most exhausting predicament. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. It's like trying to illuminate the darkness by carrying around a flashlight. No matter how bright it gets, there's always more darkness just beyond the beam. But what if I told you that your heart beats without your knowledge or control, that your immune system performs miracles of chemistry without consulting your opinions, that your eyes transform light waves into the experience of color through processes far more sophisticated than any technology we've created? There's an intelligence operating through you that's infinitely wiser than your thinking mind, and it's been running the show perfectly well without your micromanagement. Your lungs know how to breathe, your stomach knows how to digest, your wounds know how to heal, all without your conscious interference. The ancient Chinese had a beautiful term for this, Wu Wei, which means acting in accordance with natural intelligence, rather than forcing outcomes through mental effort. It's like learning to sail with the wind rather than fighting against it. When you stop trying so hard to understand and control everything, something remarkable happens. You discover that you're being lived by a wisdom far greater than your personal will. And paradoxically, this surrender to not knowing reveals a kind of knowing that's infinitely more reliable than all your mental strategies combined. You know what's absolutely fascinating about human beings? We're the only creatures on the planet who regularly fight against the very life force that's sustaining us. Have you ever seen a tree resist the changing of its leaves in autumn? A river complain about the rocks in its path? A cat refuse to be a cat because it thinks it should be a dog instead? But we humans, oh, we've turned resistance into an art form. We resist getting older. We resist feeling sad. We resist uncertainty. We resist change. We resist pretty much everything that doesn't match our picture of how life should be. And then we wonder why we're so exhausted all the time. It's like trying to swim upstream in a powerful river. You can thrash and struggle and exhaust yourself fighting the current, or you can turn around and discover that the river knows exactly where it's going. The current isn't your enemy. It's the very force that can carry you home. But we've been taught to believe that accepting what's happening means being passive, defeated, resigned. This is a complete misunderstanding. True acceptance isn't resignation, it's intelligence. It's recognizing that fighting reality is about as effective as arguing with the weather. When you stop resisting what's happening and start flowing with it, you discover something extraordinary. The very situations you were fighting against often transform naturally, like ice melting in warm water. Not because you forced them to change, but because your resistance was actually part of what was keeping them frozen in place. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or giving up on your preferences. It means learning to dance with life instead of wrestling with it. And the most beautiful thing about dancing is that you can't do it by force. You have to feel the rhythm and move with it. Now I want to ask you the most important question you'll ever contemplate. Before your parents conceived you, before you learned your name, before you knew you were supposed to be somebody special, what were you? The Zen masters call this your original face before your parents were born. This isn't a riddle designed to confuse you. It's pointing directly at something you can recognize right now. What is it that's been present throughout your entire life? Watching all the changes, all the dramas, all the stories come and go. What is it that was aware when you were 5 years old and is still aware now? Your thoughts have changed completely since childhood. Your body has replaced every cell multiple times. Your beliefs, your personality, your preferences, all transformed beyond recognition. But something has remained constant, hasn't it? Something unchanging has been witnessing all these changes. That witnessing awareness. That's your original face. That's what you were before you learned to identify with the contents of your experience instead of the awareness itself. It's like confusing the movie screen with the movie, or the mirror with its reflections. You are not your thoughts. You are what's aware of your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are what experiences emotions. You are not your body. You are the consciousness that animates and experiences through your body. This awareness is what you truly are, and it's absolutely pristine, unmarked by any of the stories you've told yourself about who you're supposed to be. Right now, without changing anything, without becoming someone different, you can recognize this aware presence that's reading these words. That's your original face, and it's been here all along, patiently waiting for you to stop looking everywhere else and simply notice what's already present. Here's the most delicious paradox in all of human seeking. You're desperately searching for something you've never actually lost, trying to get somewhere you've never actually left, attempting to become someone you've always already been. It's like frantically looking for your glasses while they're sitting on your nose. We've created this elaborate mythology of the spiritual path, as if awakening was some distant destination you could reach by accumulating enough meditation hours, reading enough books, or following enough teachers. But what if I told you that the very idea of a path to enlightenment is part of the problem? Think about it. If you're already what you're seeking, then any path that promises to take you there is actually taking you away from here. If you're already home, then any journey to get home is just sophisticated wandering. If you're already awake, then any practice to wake up is just another dream within the dream. This doesn't mean spiritual practices are useless. They can be wonderful games, like playing music or dancing. But the moment you think they're going to get you somewhere you're not already, you've missed the entire point. You don't meditate to become enlightened. You meditate because you already are enlightened, and it's fun to celebrate that fact. The pathless path is simply the recognition that what you're seeking is what's doing the seeking. The awareness that wants to become aware of itself is already perfectly aware. The consciousness that's trying to wake up is already completely awake. The self that's searching for itself is already absolutely present. So what's left to do? Nothing. And everything. Because when you stop trying to get somewhere else, you can finally enjoy where you are. When you stop trying to become someone different, you can appreciate the magnificent being you've always been. And now we come to the final recognition, the ultimate remembering of what you forgot when you were born. Are you ready for this? Because once you really see it, you can never quite unsee it again. Consciousness was never asleep. Awareness was never lost. Your true nature was never broken, never damaged, never in need of fixing or improving or awakening. What happened was much more playful than that. Consciousness decided to play the most elaborate game of hide and seek with itself. It hid so completely in the game of being you that it forgot it was playing. It became so absorbed in the drama of being a separate somebody that it lost track of its own infinite nature. Like an actor who gets so caught up in the role that he forgets he's acting. But the actor was never really lost, was he? Behind every character, the same awareness was always present, always watching, always knowing. The wave never stopped being ocean, even when it thought it was just a separate little bump on the surface. Right now, as these words are appearing in your awareness, that's it. That awareness itself, spacious, present, effortlessly knowing, that's what you really are. Not the thoughts about awakening, not the feelings about enlightenment, not the ideas about consciousness. The awareness in which all thoughts, feelings, and ideas appear and disappear like clouds in an infinite sky. You are not having an experience of consciousness. You are consciousness, temporarily experiencing itself as you. And consciousness doesn't wake up, it recognizes that it was only pretending to be asleep. This recognition doesn't require years of practice or perfect circumstances or special knowledge. It's available right now, in this very moment, as the simple knowing that you exist, that you're aware, that something is present to read these words. That's it. That's the whole secret. So here we are, at the end of our conversation, and what have we discovered? Simply this: you never actually forgot anything at all. The forgetting was part of the game, part of the cosmic play of consciousness, exploring itself through infinite forms and expressions. And now, perhaps, you're beginning to remember what you always knew but had temporarily set aside, that you are not a separate wave trying to get back to the ocean. You are the ocean, playfully waving. You are not a lost soul seeking return to the divine. You are the divine, joyfully experiencing itself as you. The invitation now is simply to live from this recognition, not as another spiritual accomplishment to add to your resume, but as the most natural thing in the world, like a bird remembering how to fly, or a fish remembering it's always been wet. Welcome home to what you never actually left. Welcome back to who you never actually stopped being. The game of forgetting is over whenever you're ready for it to be over. And isn't that just wonderful?